to that first game, just grinding down a small edge, Eric. That was really impressive. He waited until the time got lower for both players before he decided things.
Oh, that was a really nice game from start to finish. The opening choice, the middle game, he was always ahead, and he never allowed Hikaru that opportunity to mess up the position and cause chaos. It was full control to the end, and that's how he's going to win this match. If he wants to win, that's the type of position, that's the type of chess that will frustrate Hikaru. Hikaru didn't have fun playing that game, I can guarantee you.
Exactly, and it's kind of what they did to each other, trading blows here in these first two games, the white pieces proving successful. That's why I said, when you're at the start of the match, you're judging, how am I beginning this match? Is it a good start? You always got to judge after both players have had the white pieces.
We have a Rosalimo here. We saw this in the Denis Magnus match yesterday.
Yeah, bishop a3 was a threat there. Seems like a4 is a little bit of a mysterious move. White will play it anyway. And now the knight looking to play knight c4 with tempo and also head into the d6 square.
Yeah, so black does have the bishop pair, but you can notice the bishop on g7, not a big piece in the game yet. Black wants to complete development, maybe bring the queen back in the future, push these pawns, grab a bit of space. It's up to white to try to figure out, okay, how can I use the dark squares to my advantage?
Yeah, queen b1 hits the b7 pawn. I was actually looking also at a move like knight to g5. Here, the knight would actually be hanging on d2 now that the queen is moved, but knight g5 bothers the bishop, maybe earns the c4 square for white's knight, and then you can always retreat afterwards. So looks like that's what he's gone for because the c4 square is just that good.
Yeah, c4 square, we talked about the dark squares. d6 is vulnerable, and in terms of the bishop, I said the bishop on g7 isn't that good, so if white can trade this off, yes, now you're in the c4 square, and you took away black's bishop pair. Also, queen b1. What's the purpose of queen b1? It supports queenside operations. Sometimes you elevate the queen. You can use the half-open file to pressure b7. Sometimes a5 can be played to even further weaken this b6 push.
Yeah, and white's pawn structure it's almost as good as it's going to be. You don't
like
really
A5.
want to play c3. You don't want to play d4 yet. These moves are tough to achieve, and it's actually the current pawn structure that is solid, defended. That's why white, instead of playing c3, queen b3, has played queen b1, queen b3, kind of working around the current pawn structure. In terms of a pawn to move, you could play a move like g3, h3 for an escape square, otherwise a5, and I think it's just piece play.
It's just piece play, but look at the targets. Which side has easier targets? White has the easier targets. It's the b file. Look at white's other pawns. c2 is the base of the pawns. Black has no access to that. It is so solid, so the play is a bit one-sided here. It's just easy to play for white with this queenside pressure that you can accumulate. Rook b1, put a knight on c4. Where's black's counterplay?
Exactly. The queen is also eyeballing not only a pin on the c file, x-raying the king on g7. There's no immediate threats, but you're sort of building the position up. You're going to bring the rooks to the b file. You could even double them. Rook a3, rook b3. Then you're putting pressure on b7. You have a little bit of pressure on e5, more so after knight c4. And then if black's knight moves from f6, you could think about the move f4 as well. So you're just building things up slowly. I like this position, a great bounce back position to have for Hikaru. They've kind of played the same style in all three of these games so far. Slow positions, but small advantages being built up.
And a small advantage is being built up is leading also to a significant time advantage for white because it's easier to play. Now you might be wondering, if you're going to make space for white's king, is it h3 or g3? Hikaru's probably waiting. The drawback of h3 is black's looking to optimize this knight. If you play h3, I might be looking at knight h5, knight f4 as a means of getting counterplay on the king side.
Yep. Remember, this a7 pawn being hit is actually really frustrating. You can't play b6 currently, and if you play a6, suddenly not only the b6 square after knight c4, but the b7 pawn would be weak. And Eric, the move rook a8 has had to be played in defense. Now, I think that is the best move, but clearly that's a concession.
It's a huge concession. Black is completely passive. Rooks don't belong just sitting idly on a8. You don't play rook d8, rook a8, and you're happy about it. And we even see the idea of queen d6 in some positions, getting rid of the defender. That's why rook e6 was played, because black does have to watch over b7.
And, credit to Denis here. He's finding some defensive moves, but that's just the point. Like, his moves are defensive in nature. You're not going to find success that way. the position at some point is going to be too difficult to find the right move. You see the time advantage has already been built up significantly by Hikaru here. Everything looking good so far. I'm expecting to see these rooks double. That's an easy plan to go for. You mentioned h3 might not be the right move. Perhaps g3 and king g2 to build up the king side, get that king some more safety.
Yeah, white is spoiled for choice. I'm sure Hikaru is very, very comfortable because there's just nothing to worry about at all. And it's just about doing the math, getting enough pressure on the queen side.
Yeah, rook b3 in order to play rook a to b1, knight d7 to kick the queen out. But just a brief reprieve because a7 is still attacked from that queen, long range from e3. That's tying an entire rook down to its defense.
Yeah, it means rook b1 is a threat to win a pawn because after rook b1, black can't play rook b8 because of a7, b6, not enough defenders. So this is a serious threat.
Yep.
Denis is probably looking at a position where you're going down a pawn, and even those positions aren't very good because as soon as b7 falls, the integrity of the entire queenside collapses. a7, c6 will both be weak.
So I was going to suggest the move c5 intends to play b6 next. That's a way to defend the pawn, but you can see what's been given up by c5. Immediately the reaction from Hikaru. He knows exactly what's been weakened. You're highlighting that d5 square, the b5 square. We're going to see knight e3 at some point. The a file now belongs to white. You know, rook a8 shifts to b8. You've guarded the b6 pawn. Hikaru says, thanks very much. Now I'll use the a file.
Yeah, the a file is really useful. The d5 square for the knight in the future. Because at some point, Denis, he's chosen it now. b5, let's get rid of that knight on c4, but goes to e3, and knight d5 is a threat. So Denis probably has to match with knight f6, but all of a sudden, the queenside pawns for black, as they push further up, they get a bit weaker, they're more vulnerable to being picked off.
And you could take it slow here. Rook a7 is always available.
I like even rook a6. It might
Yep.
introduce ideas. You trade the rooks. You can potentially take this in a move like after king g7 because of these knight d5 ideas. So there's some tactics here. It's just one-way chess.
Yep.
White has the clear initiative without any counterplay.
Exactly right. Yeah, you start to really get some ideas to just put pressure on the pawns. You have rook a5.
We see they're overextended here. Rook b6, e5's loose. b4, c5's loose. That's the risk. You push your pawns, they get weaker.
That's great pressure. And it's just been built up so casually. You know, no move here required too much thought. This has been a routine game, applying pressure, and now you just can't keep everything. b4, you've got the c5 pawn hanging behind it. Something has got to give, and Hikaru is looking very comfortable.
So now Denis is looking at, if I'm giving up a pawn, what's the best pawn to give up? And they're almost all bad. You lose the b pawn, c5 is isolated. You lose the e pawn, your whole king side gets weak if you swing your rook over to b6. It's approaching a lost position here, both on the clock and on the board.
Yeah, queen takes e5, c5 is hit, and we're going to see c4 looking for some kind of counterplay. You can visually see, if you capture on c4, the e pawn becomes weaker, and the queen and rook are desperate to have that b file open, so we're not likely to see that pawn capture.
He wants to pass pawn. That's counterplay. If I'm going to lose, at least I'm going to go out swinging, and at least you have a b pawn to push because there's nothing else on the board to attack.
Yeah, but the queen is so well situated on e5. Should that black king ever need to move up to g7, it'll be directly into a pin, and as you're highlighting, queen b5, looking to corral that b pawn. It does not have the support behind it that it needs because knight c4 kicked the rook away.
It's such a nice move because if you trade the queens, you're like, I'm losing the b4 pawn. Can I attack d3? Black doesn't have any moves to attack d3. White goes up 2 pawns. That's game over.
And queen c7 trying to be tricky once again, but everything under control. So frustrating playing against this,
Checkmate threat.
this style.
Hikaru sees the mate on f8. I think that was missed in one of the key games yesterday.
Yes, well, he went with the rook down and actually blundered the rook to a fork. So this one, much more successful. Rook e7. Defending a mate with rook e7 is a very unusual way and just shows the state of the position.
I mean, this is the definition of suffering. You're down 2 pawns, and you have 8 seconds, and Hikaru's just at the board thinking, what's the best way to finish off Denis?
And then you have h3, right? White's fully defended on the king side as well. G3, king
Relaxing.
G2. Yeah, exactly. There's really nothing that can go wrong. Queen a3, again hitting that f8 square. He's really torturing him at this point.
I want to put the queen on a1, pin the knight, bring the knight to e3, prepare knight d5.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That looks like a nice maneuver. And you can even trade. Rook a7 to put more pressure. You can switch to the f7 square.
Just this either wins the game right away or forces lots of trades.
I like that. h4, hunting
Trying to
for
soften
something.
up the king side. Maybe
That's
the
right.
queen, if you take on h4, gets to f4. A little bit of counterplay. Not too concerned.
There's queen c5.
You know,
so
I play g4 here. G4,
Yeah.
g5. Now the queen is far away from the king side. You can actually afford to push this. Black's not in a position to take advantage of a slightly weakened king side.
exactly.
How about rook a5 here? Now g5's loose. I envision after rook a5, he's preparing it. Okay, king g6.
I think rook a5 was really good to force the queen off of f2. Obviously, a knight on f5 creates its own mating threats.
Yeah.
There we go.
Trying
rook
to
g8.
join the queen into the game. Queen a8.
Beautiful. Straight out of a puzzle rush tactic right there.